I know I shouldn't, but I deserve a treat. When the world's on fire, then you have to have an ice cream to cool off. Sounds insensitive, but that's Northern Irish humour. If I said I was cool, calm, and collected about everything that's happening in the world right now, I'd be lying. I guess we should really talk about this, huh? Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Trauma Pond HQ. My name's Olivia, and this is where we sit by the pond and we have a little chat. And today, I first of all want to say I'm very sorry that I didn't release a video last week. Life is absolutely hectic for me at the moment. But I am going to try and manage my time so much better. This is a learning experience for me doing this. I also have a personal training business outside of this. I'm also studying full time. Everything is accumulating together. So, yeah, sorry about that. But I am going to do my very best to try and figure all of this out. So today's topic I have major concerns about because obviously this is something that I am studying. So right now I am studying psychological sciences at university. I don't want to say which university I'm actually at because I don't know if that's going to get me in serious trouble. And there's an awful lot of censorship happening around Australian universities at the moment. Out of all the topics at university that are under attack right now, psychology is the one that is getting the biggest hit. And yes, it is extremely concerning. So I really want to look at someone whose head is on the chopping block for all of us, and that is Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. So his license was put under question, I believe it was at the start of last year. There were false allegations put through the university from people pretending to be his clients that were not his clients, saying that he went through bad practice with them. Those allegations alone were used as a starting point to get this ball rolling to the way it was. Because obviously, Dr. Peterson is a person who believes in free speech. And unfortunately, that is something that is not allowed in Canada. We are also seeing it here in Australia and the UK. Even America is becoming subjected to this, even though it's in their amendments. Freedom of speech is no longer allowed to exist in Western culture. I want to make this perfectly clear. It's in Western culture that this is a topic of discussion. Now, that is something that we should not be saying. We were always told that Eastern culture was the one that was the most suppressed. Yet, have a look at this.
400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously, this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Go on.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media?
Yeah.
If there is freedom of speech, why are people being arrested for that? Now, that's just an interesting thing that's popped up on social media over the last while. I'm not going to go into the topics because I don't believe YouTube will actually allow me to go into the details of that. But I'm going to ask that you do that research yourself. The whole idea that I have for this channel is spreading awareness of what trauma does to us and starting to get us to critically think. If there's one thing that I am definitely noticing now that I am actually not studying online anymore, but I'm on campus, it's just how much that the children, because they are children in my classes, most of them are 18 years old. What is an 18-year-old doing studying psychology? These are hardcore topics, the things that you have to be able to listen to from a trauma victim is exceptionally rough. Do you honestly think that someone could actually take on the role of listening to someone being assaulted as a 3-year-old? That's not something that a lot of people can handle. And it's something that took me years to truly grasp the concept, to understand if I could do this. I am one of the oldest people in my class, and now I have definitely understood why psychology is taking such a battering and why there are so many bad practices out there. Because let's face it, unless you have some sort of life experience going into the study of psychology, you are going to do terribly as a psychologist outside of that. I am watching this right in front of my very eyes. I am watching people in my classes be absolutely blithely unaware to the things of what they are actually going in to study psychology for. A lot of them are saying that the reason why they're going into psychology is solely for money. And that is not the reasons why you want to deal with a psychologist. You want to deal with a psychologist because they want to be able to help you. And when I am seeing all of these kids come and do psychology, it is terrifying seeing how bad they are at it. A lot of these kids have no variable trauma to what they are going to have to go up against, which means that they are unempathetic to your situations. In all honesty, a lot of my friends that have gone through therapy and have met young psychologists, a lot of those psychologists turn around and say, I can't help you. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of them did not have the life experience they needed before they started studying psychology. Genuinely, I believe that no one should start studying psychology until they are at least 25 years old. At least then the prefrontal cortex is fully developed in some cases. Right now, there is a war going on between truth communication, education, and elite forces, especially in Canada. So I thought today we would look at the interview between Michaela and Jordan Peterson to understand exactly what it is that's going on. Now, I have also read the transcript, well, some, but I'm not going to read that. I'm going to let you read that. But before I get into that though, guys, please, if you are enjoying all the episodes of Trauma Pond HQ, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. The more that we do this, the more I can share certain experiences of which I want you to know. There are a lot of stories of which I would love to share with you, but I can only do it once I get to a certain level. Now, I understand that I can't force people to completely commit to all of this, but the more that we like, the more that we share, the more that this gets traction. And I really do want to share certain things with you because I feel like it's very important. All right, guys, let's have a look at this interview.
It's within the college's purview to stop me from having any political opinions, as far as I can tell. Starts out by making a case for the fundamental reality of freedom of speech for Canadians in Canada, and then says, but, and that's always a bad start, but apparently the college has the right to decide that I can be re-educated forcibly with the risk of my license, essentially because I made political statements that the members of the college don't agree with. Those opinions involve two criticisms of Justin Trudeau, one criticism of his chief of staff, one criticism of an Ottawa city councillor, and then my objection on Joe Rogan to the climate apocalyptic fear-mongering that idiot tyrants are foisting on the general population.
It's quite interesting that these are the reasons why Jordan Peterson is having his license threatened. It has absolutely nothing to do with his accreditations as a psychologist. And that is quite terrifying. It's not just about the freedom of speech. I have actually, because of this interview, looked into a couple of interviews involving Justin Trudeau. And I will say, he is the modern day Henry VIII. He can't get away with chopping anybody's head off, so he has to do this sort of stuff whenever he feels like he's been butthurt. I just want to make something abundantly clear before I say my next statement. I am not diagnosing. What I am about to say has nothing to do with diagnosis. Under the DSM-5, I am completely safe in what I say here. Justin Trudeau is a malignant narcissist. All you have to do is watch any interview, anything of him talking. He says everything with a smile, regardless of the situation. I want to point something out with this.
Good morning, Tammy Williams with Shaw Spotlight. So I also have a question about money for rebuild, but from the perspective of someone whose neighborhood was evacuated. I think many of us are indeed wondering where the money will come to rebuild the communities, and perhaps that's especially poignant for people who may not have had insurance.
Empathetic nods, empathetic nods. I just want to point out that all politicians are given training in how to address these sort of questions and how they are told to behave in regards to certain questions for the public. Now, there's a reason for that, because a lot of these things And I call them things because these things are not human. I will never, ever consider narcissistic people as people. They are not human. Now, if you think that that is offensive, that's absolutely fine. You go and be by the hands of the narcissistic people. I don't care. Narcissistic people cannot change. There is no mental health issue there. It is completely personality disorder. So I do not need to care about narcissistic people, especially whenever they will do whatever they can at your expense. So these things know how to imitate empathy. He puts in the nod, he puts in the That's trained. That is trained into them. Cognitive empathy is not real empathy.
We are facing a changing world right now, changing climate. We're seeing more and more intense weather events. Insurance is going to get more difficult.
That was not the question. You'll notice that Trudeau does this in every single interview where he is asked a question that he doesn't want to give an answer to. This is word salad. I pointed this out in my last video with Gal Gadot, but I didn't actually say that she does word salad. I just pointed out that she doesn't make any sense because she's charismatic. Again, this is a charismatic figure that is not actually answering a question. He's just using deflective things so that he doesn't have to answer it. By the time he gets towards one word in this, you will have completely forgotten what the question was.
For people to obtain, even for those who can obtain it. And we know that that falls on all of us to be there for help, to help communities and individuals who've lost everything, who are having to rebuild.
The question that he was asked was, where will the money come from for rebuild? He went straight into the idea of climate change. He went right into insurance, but he has not addressed the question. And it's been 30 seconds already. It's kind of the equivalent of a con artist doing those card tricks so that they can get the one-up money. And then whenever they shake your hand, they take your watch.
We need to take lessons in how to rebuild safely. I mean, we've seen the difference between neighborhoods that were built with fire safety in mind and neighborhoods that were built before. That was really something we're thinking about.
Lessons in fire safety. Still not answering the question.
I've had a number of conversations about the need for better forest management. There are a lot of things that we need to do to be thoughtful and careful as we rebuild. I think people understand that we're in different situations now, and we're going to have to be really thoughtful and careful about how we work together.
That's a lot of word salad. I can't eat that off the plate.
But the one thing I can say is we are going to be there for each other. That's what Canadians do. All orders of government will be there to work together to make sure the Canadians are getting through this. That's what our job is as governments, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
How many things did he say in that answer without answering the question? This is what I mean. Malignant narcissist. He's grandiose. He's smiling as he says all of this. This thing is running Canada. And I really want people to take note of certain things right now. Take a look at every single leader in all Western countries and safely say that that is every single one of them. Every single one of them will answer a question like that. There isn't one, not one, that is actually willing to do things for you. And when I say that he is the equivalent of Henry VIII, he is attacking Jordan B. Peterson for speaking out against him because he gets butthurt about the fact that he is a bad person and people call him out for it. Malignant narcissists cannot deal with someone who is going to attack them, so they get everybody else that is in their power to attack them for them, including the universities, because universities are not single institutes. They are government owned. Everything is government owned. So of course the person who is leading Canada is going to attack the very person who wants people to be able to be free with their speech, especially when the idea is to reduce population by any means necessary. Like I said, you can't chop people's heads off anymore, so you have to do it in a different way these days.
That makes me unprofessional and a disgrace to the profession, such that I am now going to be required, the college can go ahead with this, to put me into a re-education program until I learn my lesson, whatever that is, regardless of how much time that takes, by their judgment, or they can take my license away. And so the court says, well, of course you have freedom of speech, Dr. Peterson, but because you're a professional, you're bound by your professional organization. And apparently they're not bound, even though they're a government organization fundamentally. Apparently they're not bound by that fundamental constitution.
You'll notice here, I am not political. I don't like politics. I hate everything to do with politics. Far left, far right, it's an absolute shambles. And there is absolutely nothing that any government, regardless of what parties they are, every single party is just out for themselves. I can't get involved with politics because there's no such thing as a good one. This just goes to show how narcissistic Trudeau really is. The fact that he is getting the universities involved to try and get somebody's license taken away, someone who had done so much work and has pioneered a whole new way of being able to make people better. There isn't one person that I can really say that has read into the works of Jordan B. Peterson that has turned around and said that they don't like him. I will hold my hands up. When I first started seeing snippets of Jordan B. Peterson, I was very much dead against him. Yes, I was one of those people. And I can safely say that about an awful lot of people, and I am happy to admit whenever I'm wrong. A lot of people are excruciatingly wrong about all the things that they see on YouTube or TikTok from these tiny little snippets. I am blown away by how many people feel like they have this full-on agenda from a 20-second clip. And I was one of those idiotic people myself. I'm one of those people that I genuinely don't know if I'm ever going to finish my psychology course because I am a critical thinker. Critical thinkers are next to non-existent in universities. There was a woman that was talking to me the other day. She asked me, what do I do? And I said, well, I study psychology at this university. And she said, oh, you must be really smart. My response to her was, no. Because if you see the type of people that are in my class, you will know that you don't have to be intelligent to get into university. You just have to pay a fee. You don't actually have to be good. If you are able to scrape by with your marks in school, you are absolutely fine, but you do not have to be intelligent to get to university. So it's not a flex saying that you're going to university whenever you've got 10,000 people that are there. 10,000 people, that's not that many people that are smart. And on the faculty as well. There is only one other person in my class that is semi-intelligent, and even she can't get over how stupid the lecturers are.
The court decision was worse than I thought it would be. I was already pessimistic. I figured at least the court would say, well, you know, of course you have the right to police professionals because you're a professional governing body, but they didn't even do that. They just basically said, well, of course you have the right to freedom of speech, except when it comes to, let's say, political opinions. There's no one in Canada except me that's actually in a position to fight this because it's hyper expensive, it's stressful, it's complex, it's time consuming. It could involve the suspension of my license. I'm not serving as a clinician. I don't have a practice anymore because that became impossible, even though I love doing it. And I'm also not very happy about that. So I'm like the person who can do this. And Canadians have no idea to what degree professionals in Canada are now required not to say what they think or to lie outright. So for example, therapists are required by law to lie about, let's say, the gender identity of minors. If you're required by law and by your professional organization to lie cowardly, you're done as a therapist because the only thing you've got as a therapist is honesty. That's it. Honesty is what's curative.
See, what he just said there, where therapists are required to lie to their clients about gender identity, that is what the new term is for those who have been fully qualified, licensed for many, many years. The problem is that now in psychology, it's not even allowed to be taught anymore. So gender identity, gender affirming care, all of that sort of thing is not allowed to be taught in universities, a lot of universities at the moment. So I am now at my second university for psychology. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to say which universities I've been to, but the previous university that I was at studying online, part of our study was to look at identity integrity. Now, what that falls under is gender affirming care and also body affirming care. So the topic that they had to use for that particular one, because they're not allowed to talk about gender identity anymore, they ended up going down the route of body integrity identity disorder. This is now a topic that is now going around social media platforms for people who are either wanting to be blind or wanting to lose an arm or a leg or something like that. Body integrity identity disorder is a very severe disorder where a person believes that they were born with a limb or an ability that they should not have been born with. It's exceptionally rare, and it's on the same level of rare as gender affirming care. But gender affirmation is not allowed to be discussed in psychology anymore. This is terrifying because as a person who is so much older, I am aware of what gender identity integrity disorder actually is. I've watched it. I have been through the scene with it. I know what it is, and I know how crippling it is for a person who actually has it. But now gender is falling into the government ideology. So now the scary thing is, when this finally does blow over, because it will blow over, by the time all of these people who have been severely affected by all of these pushes for affirming care, and it turned out that they didn't need that and they needed something else, there is going to be next to no psychologists available on how to deal with this specific trauma. And that's just one thing of many. Did you know that psychologists do not learn anything about narcissistic traits and how to spot them? Nothing. And there's a reason why they don't teach that. And it's because most of the lecturers are narcissistic themselves. Oh, believe me, I have psychology lecturers who are narcissistic as hell.
You know, it's just part of how surreal the world is, and particularly how surreal Canada is. It's hard to fathom.
Can I read just a couple of sentences from the decision so people have an idea of what's in here? But there's parts, like this is how it begins. When individuals join a regulated profession, they do not lose their charter right to freedom of expression. At the same time, however, they take on obligations and must abide by the rules of their regulatory body that may limit their freedom of expression.
Well, you have this fundamental right, but what? What rules? There's what? There's a rule, eh? There's a rule, is that right? That the College of Psychologists has, that I can't criticize Justin Trudeau on Twitter. So the rules are whatever the bloody College of Psychologists determines constitutes a rule after the fact, given their complete freedom to make manifest any rules they want. And Canadians agree with this now. The last poll indicated that Canadians believe that Justin Trudeau is the worst prime minister we've ever had. And if I can't have that opinion, and therefore, in principle, no one can, then what do we do when we're stuck with a prime minister, let's say, who everyone has decided is the worst prime minister the country's ever had? Well,
move, run if you can.
I'm with Michaela on this. By the way, I do not fan an awful lot over people. I don't believe in that holding people to an idol status, because at the end of the day, everyone is human. I really do admire Jordan Peterson and Michaela as well. I think Michaela is a fantastic person. But she's right, run. I mean, this is the thing. My partner and I, we do talk about this every now and again in a joking way, but it's getting to the point, even here in Australia, where we are starting to question where is safe. The UK is not safe. Even Ireland is not safe. There are so many countries in Europe that they are really trying to force a way of depopulating their countries in so many excruciating ways. It is phenomenal. So we really genuinely don't know the best places to go that are safe enough, not even just for freedom of speech. I mean, if Russia has got less people locked up for freedom of speech than the UK, I mean, why wouldn't we consider that? Things are just a little bit crazy right now, and we have no idea what's happening. Even right now, as I'm speaking, I am realizing that there is a high potential that I'm going to get not only severely attacked, but a lot of demonetization. And I am very much aware that there is a very high likelihood that I'm going to have to edit out an awful lot of what I've been saying here today. So I'll just let you know this right now. I'm sitting on a recording time of 1 hour. And now look at the time that I've had to actually cut out. I don't know how much I can actually say because my audience is so small at the moment.
The worst thing that could happen is the college can take away my license. Now, I already know that if my license gets taken away, there are other jurisdictions that will grant me a license the next day. And you know, there's a real comedic element to that, because I could lose my license in Ontario and instantly be licensed in at least 3 other jurisdictions. And so that's not going to look very good with regard to the Ontario College of Psychologists.
It really doesn't. It makes them look like idiots. Intellectual beings are very, very rare. So, look, I don't consider myself to be highly intellectual, but I know where I am IQ-wise. But what does that say about all the people who are average and just looking to live their life normally? They don't get to. There's a lot of people out there that want to say that ignorance is bliss. But that's not fair on everyone else around you, because the thing is, for all of you that say that, what you're not realizing is that your lack of awareness for any of these situations is costing you in the long run. So for all of you that don't want to know any of these things, it's costing you big time.
But if you happen to be sadistic and psychopathic, a profession that allows you to cut people up, and you think, well, there are no people like that. It's like, well, I think they just arrested some nurse in the UK for killing a bunch of babies in her psychopathic and sadistic manner. And so if you don't think there are people like that, you're naive beyond belief, and you better bloody well pray that you never meet anyone like that, because they're looking for someone just as naive as you to have their way with. And I think that professionals in Canada no longer have the right to express their thoughts, which invalidates them as useful professionals. And I think they're pushed into a corner so badly that even the brave professionals I know, and I do know some, are unwilling to fight this, to even make public statements in support of me.
So what Jordan's saying there, that has actually been said by quite a few psychologists, some that have got their own platform and some that have been on other people's platforms talking about this particular thing. There was one particular psychologist, Deborah So. She was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about all of this stuff before Jordan B. Peterson actually came about. She left psychology because of all the things that were happening. And it goes to show just how many people cannot fight against this system. She even went on to talk on Joe Rogan's podcast, talking about how so many psychologists were leaving the field because of the things that were happening in Canada.
Yeah, so I have a PhD in sexual neuroscience research. I made the transition from being an academic sex researcher to being a journalist. So now I write about the science of sex and gender. I write about the politicization of science and academic censorship. But they can't do their jobs right now. Everyone I know that is ethical in the field has left, or they stopped working with these patients because they don't feel they can do their job properly. So what you have instead is the people who are currently operating are activists, and they will really facilitate whatever patient wants them to do, whether or not that may or may not be the right thing for them.
And this has been happening for the last 10 years, at least 10 years. So we don't know just how bad this has been from the beginning. But if Jordan's been saying that this has been happening for the last 30 years, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
The order's not disciplinary. It clarifies that here. And does not prevent, that's good, right? It's not a punishment. You just have to pay for things you don't want to do.
What's specified in the specification is that I have to be retrained, regardless of how long that takes, until the people who are responsible for the retraining have decided that I've learned my lesson. I swear I will do this. If I am required to undergo the retraining, I will undergo the retraining. And I will tape it, and I will broadcast it. Despite my proclivity to feel guilt, which is quite substantive, and despite my temperamental unwillingness to engage in conflict, I don't see, not only do I not see what I did wrong, I think what I've done on the public communication front is my responsibility as a clinician. So we'll make it public in every possible way. And I'll bring to bear every single bit of public pressure I can possibly muster on this particular topic. And we will watch over the next 3 years, because that's how long it'll take, exactly how this plays out.
Very few people have the same intellect anywhere close to Jordan Peterson. Do you have any idea how rare it is that they could find anyone that is going to be able to educate Dr. Peterson? They don't exist. Because anyone who is of the intelligent level of 120 and above does not have the thought processes as anyone that is working in this government under Trudeau. No one. Not one person that is working in these government systems, the court system, anyone who actually agreed with the court system and the university, none of them, unless they're bought off. If there's one thing that I'm noticing now that I'm in university, it is very hard to educate people who are more intellectually sound than the educators themselves. Because the amount of times that I stump the educators at my university is insane. Some of them say I've got good points. Some of them can't even answer the question. They get so stumped on certain questions that I ask. It's like they're a deer caught in the headlights. Us critical thinkers are a dying breed. We're the equivalent of divergent.
Divergence will destroy our society.
I'm also divergent.
Unless we destroy them.
I am genuinely terrified for humanity when these kind of things happen. So I really hope that Dr. Peterson is okay and his family. This is uncalled for, but it just goes to show what the system would rather care about. Would it care about the fact that there are children going missing? Or would it care about the fact that someone is speaking out against a very bad political leader? Interesting, isn't it? What's more important? Okay, guys, I truly hope that you are all keeping well. I love you all, and I hope that you're staying safe out there. Critically think, do your research, really ask questions. There's no such thing as a bad question. So guys, thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, please like, please subscribe, please ask as many questions as possible. I do enjoy them. So yeah, take care guys. Stay safe. I love you.